Have you ever poured your heart out, only to regret it? You tried to explain yourself, hoping to be understood. You told the truth, thinking it would bring peace. You opened up, but all it brought was silence, distance, or worse, judgment. That moment when you realized your honesty became someone else's weapon, that's the moment you learn explaining yourself is not power. It's exposure. The truth is, the more you explain, the less they respect you. Not because your truth is weak, but because it makes you readable, predictable, accessible. And in a world driven by perception, being readable is being controllable. You think you're gaining understanding, but you're handing over a blueprint, a map to your soft spots, your doubts, your fears. And someone is always watching, studying, not to understand you, but to find where to push when the time comes. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you truly are." He didn't just mean to be careful with your image. He meant this: your power is in what they don't know, in the mystery, in the silence, in the tension you don't resolve, because the most respected people, the ones no one dares to cross, they don't explain. They don't justify. They move in silence. They let people wonder. And that wondering becomes fear. Fear of what you might do, fear of how you might respond. And in that hesitation lies your control. You don't need to prove your intentions. You don't need to beg for clarity. You don't need to explain your value. The more you speak, the smaller you become in their eyes. But when you pull back, when you let your stillness speak instead of your mouth, something shifts. They stop questioning you, and they start questioning themselves. This video isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming unreadable. It's about learning the ancient truth that in a world obsessed with noise, the most powerful force is mystery. And the most dangerous person is the one who explains nothing. Explaining is not connection, it's submission. Every time you over-explain yourself, you're not building trust. You're pleading for understanding. You're shrinking in front of people who never earned the right to hold your truth. You think your vulnerability will make them kinder, more loyal, more empathetic, but it doesn't. It makes you decodable. And once people can decode you, they start calculating you. The harsh reality is this: people don't always listen to understand. They listen to measure you, to see how much guilt they can manipulate, to see how far your boundaries can be pushed, to learn the rhythm of your emotions so they know exactly how to destabilize you later. And by the time you realize what you've done, it's too late. You've handed them the script. They know what triggers you. What makes you chase? What makes you explain? And worst of all, what makes you doubt yourself? This is why Machiavellian thinkers never explain unless there's leverage in the explanation. They never answer questions designed to expose them. They stay calm. They let others fill the silence. They let others project, assume, miscalculate. Because they know this one truth: what people don't know they can't use. Your silence becomes a force field, a mirror, a weapon. It makes people uneasy. It forces them to sit in their own interpretations, their own insecurities. They start to overthink. They wonder if they offended you, if you're planning something, if you saw through them. And that uncertainty is the beginning of your power. Because when people don't know what you're thinking, they prepare for the worst. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to share your pain with anyone who hasn't earned it. Silence protects. Mystery dominates. And in a world where so many people overshare their weaknesses just to feel accepted, the one who says nothing is the one they all watch in silence. Silence isn't absence, it's psychological pressure. In a world that never stops talking, silence is no longer neutral. It's disturbing, it's confusing, it's powerful. Because when you refuse to explain yourself, when you don't react, don't defend, don't clarify, people are forced to confront the void. And in that void, they begin to project their fears, their guilt, their insecurities. You become the mirror they can't escape. Machiavelli didn't win power by shouting louder than his enemies. He won by watching them unravel under their own assumptions. Because silence is never just quiet. Silence amplifies everything they don't understand about you. They don't know if you're angry or planning. They don't know if you're forgiving or waiting to strike. And that unknown, that fog, is where your dominance begins. The loudest person in the room may appear confident, but they're also the easiest to study. You see their values, their boundaries, their desperation to be seen. You see their need, but the quiet one, the unreadable one, they unsettle the entire room without lifting a finger, because people fear what they can't predict. This is the psychological truth. Machiavelli understood before modern psychology had words for it. Silence triggers imagination, and imagination is always louder than facts. When you're silent, they start asking themselves, what did I miss? Did I say too much? Is he upset? Is she done with me? And that spiral of uncertainty, that's control without confrontation. You didn't threaten. You didn't explode. You didn't reveal your strategy. You simply vanished from the emotional chessboard and let them play against themselves. So next time you're tempted to explain, next time you want to justify, clarify, or overshare, ask yourself, will this give me power, or will it make me predictable? Because in this world, power is not always taken. Sometimes it's surrendered through words that should have never been spoken. Explaining is what the powerless do to be tolerated. The powerful, they're too busy being respected. You've been conditioned to believe that being understood is the highest form of connection. That if people just knew your side of the story, they would treat you better. That if you explain your reasons, your emotions, your struggles, people will give you compassion, support, respect. But that's a lie. Because in the real world, people don't respect transparency. They analyze it, they calculate it, they use it, and the more you explain, the more you shift the power from you to them. You are no longer setting the tone, you're reacting to theirs. Let me tell you the truth. Machiavelli understood centuries ago, powerful people don't explain. They position. They don't say, this is why I did it. They simply do and let others adjust. Because in any hierarchy, business relationships, or social dynamics, explaining yourself is like offering an apology for existing. You're saying, please understand me. You're saying, please approve of my actions. You're saying, let me earn your emotional permission. But the powerful don't ask for permission. They move. This is the psychological trap of the approval addicted. They think explaining will buy them acceptance, but in reality it buys them exposure. People don't follow those they fully understand. They follow those they fear misunderstanding. Why? Because mystery creates space. And space creates mental authority. They tread lightly around you, not because you're loud, but because you're unreadable. They hesitate, not because you're aggressive, but because they're unsure what you're capable of. This is the principle of strategic ambiguity, the ultimate Machiavellian tactic. Say less, show less. Let others reveal more, because the moment they feel they know you, they stop respecting you. They stop guessing. They start challenging. And once they feel confident in their assumptions about you, the power shifts entirely. That's why the strongest leaders, the most intimidating minds, the most respected figures in any room, they rarely explain. They leave silence in their wake. They leave space for others to wonder. Was that deliberate? Was that a warning? Was that a test? And that wondering becomes internal restraint. That wondering becomes caution. That caution is power. So the next time someone pressures you to explain, pause. Ask yourself, are they genuinely seeking understanding, or are they gathering ammunition? Because when someone doesn't respect your silence, they won't respect your explanation either. In fact, the more you talk, the more you lose. Power is not in clarity. Power is in controlled confusion, just enough to keep them thinking, but never enough for them to act against you with confidence. And that's not manipulation. That's survival in a world where being too clear gets you dissected, but being unreadable, that gets you obeyed. Powerful people don't defend their reputation. They let others create myths about them. When you stop explaining, something strange happens. People don't forget you. They talk about you more. They study your face, your tone, your silence. They whisper. They guess. They invent stories about you because human nature abhors the unknown. And when you give them nothing, they create everything. That's the secret the powerful have always understood. Mystery is leverage. When you don't explain yourself, you force others to use their imagination. And imagination, unlike truth, has no limits. Let them wonder why you didn't respond. Let them obsess over what you meant when you said nothing. Let them spiral into uncertainty while you remain calm, still unbothered. Because in their mind, your silence becomes a storm they can't predict. And the beauty is you didn't lift a finger. Machiavelli knew that the most dominant leaders weren't the ones who shouted orders. They were the ones who said the least and watched others bend themselves around assumed meanings. He understood that mystery gives you psychological altitude. It elevates you above the noise, above the gossip, above the chaos, because people fear what they can't define. You don't need to correct the narrative. You don't need to clarify the rumors. You don't need to step into the mess to prove your truth. Let them speak. Let them guess. Let them build castles of assumption on foundations of silence. That's not weakness, that's design. Because while they waste energy trying to figure you out, you're conserving energy. You're watching. You're calculating. You're seeing who's loyal and who breaks under curiosity. You're not in the story, they are. And they don't even realize it. This is the art of passive manipulation, the highest level of psychological warfare. No words, no threats, just presence, just precision, just a perfectly timed pause that makes the entire room question their own position. When you hold back your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, you don't lose authenticity. You gain strategy. You become hard to read. And what's hard to read is hard to attack. So the next time someone demands clarity, don't give it. The next time someone tries to push you into justifying your actions, don't flinch. Maintain eye contact. Say less. Let silence fill the gap, because in that gap your power multiplies. Not because you proved anything, but because you made them feel something they can't explain. And in a world of oversharers and noise addicts, the one who speaks least controls the most. Mystery isn't just psychological, it changes how the world treats you. People treat you based on how they perceive your emotional availability. They test your boundaries based on how predictable your reactions are. And they decide how far they can go based on how much you explain. The more you talk, the more they calculate. The more you reveal, the more they reposition. But when you're silent, strategic, and hard to read, everything changes. Let's look at the 3 areas where this power plays out: work, love, and enemies. In the workplace, the most respected leaders aren't the ones who overshare. They don't talk about their doubts. They don't complain to be relatable. They speak with clarity, not emotion. And they only say what's necessary. Why? Because people follow who they respect, not who they understand. And respect is built in silence. When you reveal too much at work, your stress, your struggles, your opinions, you may feel more human. But to others, you become less stable, less composed, less leader-like. Silence here isn't detachment, it's presence with precision. It makes you someone they listen to even when you're not speaking. In romantic relationships, the mystery keeps attraction alive. When you're overly available, overly explain yourself, overly predictable, you become emotionally cheap. But when you hold a piece of yourself back, not as a game, but as a discipline, you create depth, curiosity, intrigue. Let them wonder, what's going on in their mind? Why didn't they text back so fast? Why do they seem calm when others would beg? That wondering creates pursuit. And pursuit is what keeps the dynamic charged. You don't need to lie. You need to not offer everything up front, because the most attractive energy isn't desperation to be known. It's confidence in being whole, with or without validation. And with your enemies, silence is psychological warfare. The one who explodes first loses. The one who explains reveals. But the one who says nothing, who smiles, walks away, watches. That one haunts their opponents. Not because they did something, but because they might. That unknown becomes fear. And that fear is power because it lives rent-free in their mind. In all these dynamics, professional, personal, adversarial, one law is constant. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You need to be unreadable. Let others speak first. Let them reveal themselves. Let them guess your boundaries while you enforce them without warning. Because the more uncertain they feel about your mind, the more control you have over theirs. In a world that overshares, the unreadable become gods. Look around. Everyone is talking, explaining, justifying, begging to be understood. It's a world addicted to exposure where validation is currency and silence is mistaken for weakness. But you're about to do something most people will never have the courage to do. Withdraw. Go silent. Disappear from the noise. Not because you're broken, not because you're afraid, but because you finally understood the truth. Power lives in mystery. The most powerful people in history, real and legendary, weren't the ones who constantly shared their thoughts, explained their moves, or begged to be liked. They were the ones who created myths through what they didn't say. Their silence echoed louder than the noise of armies. Their unpredictability created caution, and their distance created devotion. In a world of oversharing, silence becomes sacred. It becomes your brand, your weapon, your armor. Because when you stop explaining, something shifts. People lean in, they wonder, they question themselves more than they question you. And that shift from you chasing clarity to them chasing understanding is where dominance begins. Let them guess. Let them feel confused. Let them fill the silence with their own insecurities. You don't need to correct their assumptions. You don't need to chase their approval. Let your aura speak louder than any apology, any clarification, any outburst ever could. Because mystery isn't hiding, it's commanding from the shadows. It's what forces people to watch what they say around you, to hesitate before crossing you, to wonder what you're capable of, and that wondering is your throne. Machiavelli didn't say, explain yourself. He said, it is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And in this age of exposure, love is cheap, but fear is currency. Mystery is magnetism. And silence, when wielded with intention, is respect, strategy, and survival. So don't tell them what you're thinking. Make them wonder. Don't prove your worth. Let your absence do it for you. Don't respond to attacks. Let your silence make them overthink until they destroy themselves. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be liked. You just need to be felt without being figured out. And when that happens, you're no longer just a person. You become a force, untouchable, unreadable, unbreakable. In the end, it's simple. Those who explain too much lose control. Those who say nothing take the room. In a noisy world where everyone is trying to explain, express, and be understood, true power lies in deliberate silence. The profound lesson of Machiavelli is the strong person is not the one who speaks, but the one who leaves others guessing. When you stop explaining, you take back control. You are no longer forced to defend your opinions, feelings, or actions. You become someone others have to be careful about. Because what is unclear is invulnerable. Applied to American life today, this means learn to stay silent in pointless arguments. Stay calm when attacked and not share your every feeling or personal plan with the world. The unpredictable is the hardest to hurt. Let mystery protect you. In family work and relationships, calm and unpredictability are always more frightening than any explanation.